The Pacific Division is one to be plundered for fantasy gold, but how is it going to shake out this upcoming season? We'll break it down 8 through 1 on the Friday edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are only 4 days away from puck drop on the 2025-26 NHL season, my fantasy fanatics, and that's why you are tapped right back into your 30-minute source for all things fantasy hockey. It is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast coming in red hot for a Friday edition. That is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, where right now, new customers to FanDuel bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets back by visiting FanDuel.com today to get started. Steele, we had our live draft the other night. We had a second draft in our competitive league. It's go time, my friend, and our continuation of breaking down every single division arrives in the Pacific. My bad for mixing things up. We were going to go Atlantic, but your boy's trying to hold it together here. It's Fresh Cut Friday, my friend, and we're breaking down the Pacific Division 8 through 1, updated betting odds. I've got some burning fantasy questions to throw your way. Let's start at 8. This is a really talented division, Steele. A lot of fantasy value to be had here. And honestly, aside from the Seattle Kraken, I kind of like the upside of a whole lot of angles with most of these teams. So over to you. Who do you have coming in at 8?
Well, let's start with the Seattle Kraken because that's who I have at number 8. And I'm really appreciative that you have those odds up because I'm going to be coming to you asking about those odds very shortly. And yes, Seattle Kraken come in at number 8 for me. And when you go and look at the Seattle Kraken's rankings on Yahoo or ESPN, it speaks volumes when their top 2 current players ranked are 2 defensemen, and they're not even inside the top 75. So that's how I view this team. It's going to be a struggle. They've gone through multiple head coaches over the time since they've entered the league. They've been one of the worst teams over the last couple of years in their division, in the conference as well. Jared McCann was their leading scorer last year, and we really like Jared McCann as one of those streaming options, one of your last picks. Had 61 points, 82 games last year, over 200 shots. So I think he could be a very good option, but they don't have a superstar on this team, and they are a long ways from having a superstar on this team, even though they have some young prospects in Beniers, in Kakko now, with Shane Wright, Tolvanen we spoke about a little bit with some peripheral value with this player, but Seattle is just a team in a very tough conference. When you have the Golden Knights, when you have the Oilers, when you have the Kings, it's very difficult to keep up with them right now because of, again, it's a little bit of a different scenario, and they've developed and they've come into the league differently than how the Vegas Golden Knights came in. So it's going to be an uphill battle, in my opinion, and that's why I have Seattle at number 8.
And what's interesting with this team, Steele, is like when you kind of look at it, they have a whole bunch of really nice kind of middle 6 players. And even in a guy in the cage in Joey Decord, who at times last year was really good. 27, 23, and 5, 2 shutouts, 2.75 goals against, 906 save percentage. When I was trying to dig into this team for an angle that I would feel really comfortable kind of telling our folks to go out there and have a look at, you know, Joey Decord is one of those that kind of come to the top of the list. I really don't like this Seattle team. Last year, I know I'm kind of being overcritical considering their goal differential was right there in the mix with the Flames and the Canucks. I don't see it this year, and maybe, you know, sue us both because I think the San Jose Sharks come in here at 7th, I should say. This Sharks team has a lot of good things going for it. And if we're being honest here, these two teams will be very close to the bottom of the division. I think that's pretty obvious. But now you're seeing the draft choice of Michael Misa. You're seeing some other pieces, obviously, Will Smith, Macklin Celebrini. My big question here, and I know we're going to do some burning questions, it's about Yaroslav Askarov because this guy wanted out of Nashville. He got that. He got sent to San Jose. I don't know how that's really done for him. It hasn't done too well. He's only 23 years old. So they head into the season with Nedeljkovic and Askarov, Steele, and that is definitely going to be this team's biggest kind of Achilles heel, if you will. So I'll throw it over to you. I have them at 7th. the upside in the offense, it's there already. Macklin Celebrini is going to be nasty this year. They have some good veterans, Tyler Toffoli and otherwise. That goaltending tandem, that's a powder keg right there.
I think offensively, other teams around the league are going to be having their keeping their heads on a swivel when they're playing against the San Jose Sharks. There's just so much young talent in the top six group, and some veteran presence, and a guy like Tyler Toffoli who can lead them along the way. I actually have the San Jose Sharks at number 6. I have them a little bit higher on this list. I have the Vancouver Canucks at number 7, man. And I told you, I'm staying away from this team. I'm not buying into it. I'm worried about Thatcher Demko's injury still. And you know, the rehab and rehabilitation that he's kind of gone through over the last year and a half. I'm not buying back into Elias Pettersson. We still got to come to an agreement on what the over under
that bet.
Yeah. We do have to make that bet before the season starts. But I'm not buying into it. We expected a little bit of a regression from Brock Besser. We got that. Only 25 goals, 50 points in 75 games. You know, recent addition from Jake DeBrusk at the trade deadline, getting Evander Kane in the offseason. I like what they can bring fantasy-wise. I'm not buying into it. Besides Quinn Hughes, there's not really enticing fantasy pieces that you can get up in the higher rounds. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people hoping for a bounce back with Elias Pettersson. I got to wait to see it. I don't buy into them. I have them at number 7.
I think this team is kind of been under the influence of a whole bunch of off-ice distractions. You know, we've gone through this. I agree with you. Is that reset of the JT Miller, Elias Pettersson situation? You know, there was obviously all the coaching change madness. There was like dumpster fires of press conferences. Now that seems to have all died down, let's see what this team can do on the ice. I'm not going to say I'm not hating on you for having them at 7. I have them at 6. So it was Kraken 8, Sharks 7, and the Canucks at 6 for me. And I guess when I look at the blue line steal, this is the main concern for me because I know Brock
100%.
Besser, Pettersson, DeBrusk, Evander Kane, Philip Hedl, that doesn't jump off the page, but I think it comes down to the strength of this blue line and how much of it can be carried by Quinn Hughes. I really like the pairing of Quinn Hughes and Philip Bronek. I think that's better than most teams, and they do provide a ton of fantasy value, but after that, and that's my question for this team. That might be too much pressure to be put on a defensive pairing. I don't know how many teams in recent NHL history can enter a season and go, this is our strong suit, our top pairing, and we got to rely on these two guys. That's just my take. I'm sure Vancouver Canucks fans are screaming at me. Demko and Lankinen are apparently a really good tandem, and a lot of to trust it. However, there's a lot more to talk about in this division steal. I got the odds for you here, though. San Jose Sharks right now at plus 20,000 come in the 8th spot. Ooh. Seattle Kraken plus 7,500 in the 7th spot. Calgary Flames at plus 5,000. And we'll talk about a few teams right after the break because I'm excited to talk about these Anaheim Ducks steal. And my boy Jackson Lacombe getting the bag. Are we starting to buy into it now?
Getting paid.
We're starting to buy into it now. This kid's for real. So will the rest of today's episode be. It is sponsored by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss, where right now new customers that bet $5 and hit get $300 in bonus bets. That's right. You put down a pick, $5. If it wins, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Something that Steele and I did heavy on that Thursday night football. Hopefully we got a little cash money in the bank, Steele. Same game parlays, live in-game plays, quick, easy, secure payouts. FanDuel is the spot. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the app today and get started.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steele Roden. Mm-hmm. And Flip, I had a really tough time actually placing these next two teams because I think they're relatively in the same position right now at going into this season, especially with where Anaheim made their moves, some really intriguing pieces to go along with their young core here. Carlson, Terry, Cutter Gauthier, Mason McTavish. You bring in a guy like Chris Kreider, who still has that goal scoring ability. Mikael Granlund, who's played very well as over the last couple of seasons too. We just talked about Jackson Lacombe securing the bag, 7-year, $9 million AAV. Olin Zellweger, Pavel Mintyukov, Radko Gudas, and Jacob Trouba just shutting it down on the back end. You've spoken so highly about Lucas Dostal and what he can mean for this franchise moving forward as well. A big reason why they ended up trading John Gibson to the Detroit Red Wings, because it's his time, it seems like. Really good fantasy pieces. I ended up putting them at number 5, so I do have the Calgary Flames ahead of them in this situation.
Me too.
But I spoke very highly about Cutter Gauthier again. I think when you look at what transpired last season, Troy Terry was their point leader, 55 points in 77 games. Again, lacking a true superstar for the last 3-4 seasons now. And with the young core that they have, this is going to be a breakout season, I believe, for the Anaheim Ducks. They're going to put a lot of teams on notice for what they can possibly do. And especially, like you said, that blue line's getting better and better every day.
I got to kind of slow my roll here a little bit with the Anaheim Ducks because, they bring in Chris Kreider. Mikael Granlund comes in. They've got Strome, Killorn. This is a really interesting mix, and I like Pat Verbeek in the front office. I think this guy has been flying under the radar, no pun intended. That's a duck pun. That actually has deserved a whole lot more. Sorry, that was really, really bad. The point is here, Steele, this team is going to be good for a very long time. And my question is the step this year or next year? And I'm glad we both have them here because it's a lot to ask to just jump over teams like the Vegas Golden Knights, the Edmonton Oilers. Let's not even get started on the Central Division. So there is going to be, again, and we've said this in the Atlantic because we're so close to everything, there's going to be some really good teams on the outside looking in. And I say this now. Jackson Lacombe, Radko Gudas, Zellweger, Trouba, let's not forget. Mintyukov and Drew Hellison, this is one of the best blue lines in the NHL. You need to pay attention to it now. And there is fantasy. This is a fantasy goldmine. Let's also be clear. Bennett Seneca is also on the rise, Steele. Did you see him undress the defense the other night?
Yeah.
They have more players coming. And you already talked about Cutter Gauthier, Mason McTavish, Leo Carlson. My goodness me, pay attention to these Anaheim Ducks. And if you're not drafting them, Steele, go after some of these pieces on the waiver wire in a very big way. I could continue to talk about it because I haven't even touched on Lucas Dostal in a while. You know how I feel about him. And Jackson Lacombe. The Ducks for some juice, Steele. Not going to happen, but for some juice, plus 3,500. Maybe if you make a whole bunch of money on Sunday's picks, you throw a little 5-piece on that. However, coming in at 4, these Calgary Flames, who leads the offensive charge here, Steele, a team that struggled to score last year.
Yeah, they did. And I do believe that there is an opportunity for Calgary to make the playoffs this season. You know what? I actually did say Utah was going to make the playoffs, and that's 5 from the Central Division. So maybe they miss out just by a couple of points again. However, again, some really solid options here. We've seen time and time again doing our mock drafts, and even the draft that we just did for our casual league was Nazem Kadri sliding down the board significantly. You see a ton of centermen like Kadri, like Rupe Hintz, like Nico Hischier, really falling down the draft board from where their expert rankings are, their ADPs are going, and so on. But some really good value. I believe you drafted Matt Coronado yesterday or on Wednesday as well. Great pick. I think he set up for a really good season, 30 goals, 60 points, over 200 shots, adding in with those peripheral categories too. Jonathan Huberdeau, a guy who I still think we know he's not going to put up another 115-point season. That's clear to us, but 62 points in 81 games last season. I really do believe he can get back somewhere closer to 70, maybe 75 on a really good year if his chemistry along with those new guys and guys who are now in the lineup can be consistent. I just think what we saw last year as well, Dustin Wolf, we've seen him go, I don't want to say early, but we've seen him go pretty high in drafts. And
I think he's the key to success here, Steele.
He is the key to success for the Calgary Flames. And he was the key last year as well. I mean, he played fantastic. He had over he had a 9-10 save percentage, a 2.64 goals against average, 29-16-8 record with 3 shutouts. goals saved above average, 15.1. He was amongst one of the best goaltenders in the league last year.
Agreed.
And, again, in consideration for the Calder Trophy. So really good options with this Calgary team, though. I know a lot of people want to overlook them when it comes to fantasy leagues and drafting, but if you can get Nazem Kadri, if you can get Matt Coronado, we drafted Zane Parekh, or I drafted Zane Parekh, Mackenzie Weegar, of course, for those Banger Cat leagues, some decent options from Calgary. However, now that I'm thinking about it, I did have Utah making the playoffs. So unfortunately for Calgary, they're going to miss the postseason once again.
And they're not sexy like the Utah Mammoth are. Let's be real. The Calgary Flames scored 220 goals last year total. Only the Ducks, Preds, and Sharks scored less. That puts you right into the realm of what we're talking about here, Steele. That's going to be something that has to improve. Because if we're buying into everything we just said about the Ducks, and we kind of like to hold true to our takes here on this show, there is going to be a situation where the Calgary Flames are going to have to figure out some more offense. Matt Coronado, quote unquote, cannot do it on his own, and neither can Nazem Kadri. So that's going to be a situation that they're going to have to rectify in a hurry. Coming in here at the third spot, look, to me, this is a clear cut who's on top in this division, Steele. The second and third, I think we could have swapped around. I've talked far too much about what I think the Edmonton Oilers can do, even with their goaltending. So the LA Kings come in at 3. The question for me here is, and I really do think he can be that game-changing player because we've seen the highlight reel plays, is this the year finally we see Quinton Byfield do what he needs to do? Because take a look at it, though. Kevin Fiala, Adrian Kempe. You know what you get from Kopitar. Alex Laferriere taking a step. That third line we love. Deneau, Trevor Moore, those kinds of guys. Yeah. Quinton Byfield has a big opportunity here, Steele. For me, he's too kind of 50-50. One night he's lost. The other night he's highlight reel dangling. I can't say go out there and draft him, but to me, he's huge for the success of this team this year. I'm going to stop rambling, throwing it over to you. They come in at 3rd for me in this division. Darcy Kemper had a sensational year last year. That's also a big if, even though I like it. Kings come in at 3. It's the Oilers and the Golden Knights on top.
It's a big season for the LA Kings, especially with the announcement from Anze Kopitar, this being his last season, retiring at the end of the year. And, it's sort of a passing of the torch and from Kopitar to Quinton Byfield. So he really needs to show the franchise that he can up his game, be that leader, be that guy offensively to run the tables for them. And I know they have really talented players like Adrian Kempe. Kevin Fiala had a little bit of a down year compared to what we've seen, over the last 3 years where he was, closer to 70, 75 points. He only had 60 points last season. When I look at the LA Kings, their depth is really unmatched in the Western Conference. They have a really good bottom 6, and that's not even speaking about Corey Perry, who just got injured, and even at 40 years old can still bring it, can still be that absolute pest that everybody hates to play against, but you love playing with him. But you talked about it. That third line to me is so good. Philip Deneau, Trevor Moore, Warren Fogle, a guy who is now putting up 40 points. Very pesky. Warren Fogle putting up 40 points consistently, over 200 shots. He gets in physically as well. 74 hits, 40 blocks. He had close to 200 shots last season. Really good team all around. You spoke about Brandt Clarke as well and what this season can mean for his fantasy value and learning from a guy like Drew Doughty. I'm not saying Drew Doughty is going to be gone at the end of the year, but he's also up there in age. And how much longer does he have left with all the injuries that he's taken over the last 10, 15 years of his career? So this is a good opportunity for both Brandt Clarke, good opportunity for Quinton Byfield and all the other young guys. And we expect big things from the LA Kings, but with where we have them ranked, it looks like it's going to be another Oilers-Kings first round matchup, and it has not gone well for the Kings over the last 4 years.
It certainly has not. However, we hope that the draft season has been treating you much better, my fantasy friends. Steele and I will continue to be here to break down everything that you need to know. The season's going to pop next week, Steele. Every single episode will be dropping our favorite picks, our best bets, same game parlays, everything that you guys need to pack that pocketbook. However, let's wrap it up. Top 2 teams in the division. I got a couple more burning questions, some fantasy angles. Back over to you, my friend. Golden Knights and Oilers. What can Mitchie do?
All of that and more on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe, the follow button, share with your friends and family out there, and continue to support the show. Show love in the comments. DM us with any fantasy questions you have, and we really do appreciate it. Top two teams, you already said it.
Yep.
The Edmonton Oilers coming at number 2. The Vegas Golden Knights coming at number 1. And let's quickly speak about the Edmonton Oilers, just because, I mean, we've spoken about them so much over the summertime. We know what
Both
they're
teams,
capable
really.
of, but I mean, what do you think about the Connor Ingram the Edmonton Oilers acquiring Connor Ingram? I mean, you all these fans out here, like, hey, like, are we actually going to let's trade for a number 1 goaltender in the offseason? It's like, yeah, we got you, but it's Connor Ingram. So that's a tough stitch.
Very much so, Steele. I wrote down a burning question for each team, and I'm looking at, and I'm going to read this verbatim for the one for the Edmonton Oilers. Same old, same old. Can Skinner / Pickard / Ingram be good enough? That is a trio that, look, we can dig into the trenches and say there's some fantasy value in Stuart Skinner. Definitely, if he's going to be the number 1, this team is going to get wins. But that trio is not going to be one that carries you past Sergei Bobrovsky and the Florida Panthers. They continue to lock down the exact same team for the most part. Matthew Tkachuk is going to come back rested and ready to blow the doors off the league in January. This could be a huge thing for a guy with a lot of miles on the body. No one's really talking about that as well, Steele. Pretty sneaky little stash option if you got some IR slots for upcoming drafts, by the way. I know you backed me up there. To me, this is just the same old song and dance. And I think we can keep this one really short and sweet.
Yep.
It's Connor McDavid. It's Leon Draisaitl. Whatever you get from Evan Bouchard is a bonus, because those three together are really not only fantasy juggernauts, top 2 rounds, obviously locks for all 3. They are good enough to win a lot of games against most teams. So this team will be the second best in the division. It's just after that, what is that trio, quote unquote, of goaltenders going to do for you fantasy wise, other than 0G for Stuart Skinner? I'm staying away from that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, well, he better have fantasy value, because I had to pick him up. I had to draft him in that casual league, so he better pan out. Vegas Golden Knights, though, at number 1, I believe their odds to win the division were plus 115 the last time I
got
saw
you right here.
Somewhere around there, but they're the top team in the Pacific Division. I look at Jack Eichel, and everyone knows who tunes into the show how I feel about him and his caliber and his status in the league, being a true superstar, putting the league on notice once again. And now with Mitch Marner as his line mate, these are 2 players that I see hitting 100 points. And for the first time in Jack Eichel's career, hitting 100 points. And it depends on who sticks with them on the top line, whether it's Pavel Dorofeyev or if it's Ivan Barbashev. That will increase their fantasy stock and their value going into the season as well. I can see a little bit of mix and matching with those 2 guys, maybe getting Mark Stone up there from time to time. But a guy like Barbashev, a guy like Dorofeyev, you want to keep your eyes peeled on those 2 players, depending on if they stick with them on that top line the entire season. Adin Hill, I don't think gets enough credit for what he's done in his time with the Vegas Golden Knights as well. He's a really solid goaltender. Shea Theodore, I think if he gets the number 1 spot, and I know that they've practiced with Mitch Marner at the top for the power play, if he can be on that first power play unit, I think Shea Theodore is an absolute sneaky sleeper pick, even with his average draft position is going right now. That first power play unit of Marner, Hertl, Jack Eichel, Stone, and Theodore is going to be one of the best, if not the best, in the entire National Hockey League. And I have them going all the way to the Western Conference Finals.
Top to bottom, this team is just a juggernaut. Front office, all the way down to the scouting, all the way down to the coaching staff. And they bring in Mitch. We know the story here. Last year, a goal differential of plus 56 was the second best in the entire Western Conference.
Yep.
This team is the truth. They're balanced. They have good pieces like Ivan Barbashev to balance out the high-end talent, the guy who just plays like a little bit of a wrecking ball. You know, you got depth down the lineup, even with, I believe William Karlsson's getting looks on the 3rd or 4th line as your 4th line center. That is an option that I think, it just proves the depth of this team. And I'm not saying William Karlsson is a superstar, but just look at that. He's down there on this team. Mark Stone staying healthy is going to be massive this year for this team, because he's a point-per-game player and a gamer and a difference maker, a clutch performer. He needs to stay healthy to take that pressure off. A guy like Mitch who can sometimes get in his own head. So that to me is a huge caveat. There'll be a lot more to be covered, Mr. Rodent, and we'll be here to do it. We'll wrap it up with the Atlantic on Monday, and hockey will be back, I believe, Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not good with the numbers, Steele, but it's one of those
October 7th will be the season opener. Next Tuesday it will. And we are so pumped. Make sure you're staying tuned in for next episode where we break down the Atlantic Division, predictions, burning questions, odds, and best bets. We still have to get to our 5 bold predictions for this season as well. That will be Tuesday's episode. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. For your second listen, you got to go check out the 2025 NHL season preview on Locked On NHL, a 6-episode series bringing you the best local insight to make you the most informed NHL fan heading into the season. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Peace.